Okay, do we have everybody up north? Everybody down south? Everybody online? All right, let's see if we can power through the rest of this. Thank you very much for allowing us to have a quick lunch break, and we're back. So we will now go to the items on the List H. And we will start with H53. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the Interim Finance Committee. My name is Melissa Laffer-Lewis, and I serve as the Administrative Services Officer for the division. Agenda item H53 requests a transfer from the State Treasurer's Office to fund the position requests included in Senate Bill 420 of the 2021 legislative session for the Nevada public option. This request includes 4 new positions to assist with the development of the state public option for health insurance, including the creation and submission of the federal 1332 waiver for the available federal pass-through funds. And with that, we would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. And I see Assemblywoman Brown-May has one.
Thank you. Thank you for presenting on this item. Thank you, Madam Chair, for allowing the question. I'm just curious to know, this was a robust conversation during the last session of the legislature with regard to Senate Bill 420 and the public option. Are you able to provide a status with regard to the implementation and where we are in the process?
For the record, Melissa Laffer-Lewis, we do have Deputy Administrator Stacy Weeks to help give an update on where we are with this program.
Thank you. Chair, committee members, my name is Stacy Weeks, for the record, Deputy Administrator of the DHCFB. The status update at this time is that we have been working on implementing the waiver application for pass-through funding, and we currently are hoping to post in the next week or two that application for public comment, and it includes the actuarial report that was part of the funding that was passed during session, and it includes an additional provider tying analysis. So I will say it has taken a little longer than we had wanted to post that report. We were hoping to repost it a couple of weeks ago, but it's, the actuarial analysis is very in-depth, which is good news, but it is about over 100 pages at this time. So we're hopeful, though, it will all be ready to be posted in the next week or two.
Thank you for that. I'm curious to know, could you give us a little bit of clarity around, are we doing research to identify the number of people that are otherwise Medicaid eligible that are just not currently enrolled versus those that would move to a public option? Is there a balance in those numbers?
Yes, the analysis includes a look at who we think is still, Chair, committee member Stacy Weeks, for the record. The analysis does look at how many people we expect will move from, especially around with the public health emergency unwind. And so it does assume some of the changes in the market with that as well, and take up in Medicaid. But the only numbers that we have with regards to uninsured has to do with some analysis a couple years ago about those who are eligible for Medicaid but not yet enrolled.
Thank you very much. Any additional questions?
Madam Chair?
From the committee? Yes, Senator Titus.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity to ask a couple questions, actually. I'm pretty concerned that we're seeing this today and feel that it's being rushed and perhaps we should delay this. As you yourself just mentioned, we won't see the actuaries until for a week or so. So we don't have all the information we truly need to implement this or spend this money. So I'm curious about bringing it forward today and without adequate information.
Chair, committee member Stacy Weeks, for the record. Oh, sorry, Titus, go ahead.
I just want clarification why you feel we need to move forward with this at this meeting and not delay it. As you said, you don't have all the information published yet.
Chair, committee member Stacy Weeks, for the record, Deputy Administrator at Division of Healthcare Financing and Policy. We do have the information. It's just I'm not able to get it posted on the website at this time. We're compiling everything. We did do an early findings release a couple, that feels like a long time ago, but it was about a month ago. I think it was in September, so about 2 months ago, where we did release and did a presentation on the findings. It's just that the actuarial report has to go through a very long and detailed process at Milliman, who is our actuary, who has done a lot of peer review internally, and to make sure their analysis is solid and all of their assumptions are correct. So, and there have been no serious changes since those findings. It's just a process that they had to go through. So we do have information. Now, when it comes to the staffing that are part of this public workshop, we are just implementing the law. These staff were part of the legislation that was passed, and we're asked to implement them and hire them as part of this fiscal year. So that is why we're asking for the funding.
Thank you for that. Next question I have is, you hosted at least 6 different workshops with stakeholders, and I'm wondering if you have a list of who attended and were they invited folks, and who would you define as stakeholders?
Chair, committee member Stacy Weeks, Deputy Administrator of the Nevada Division of Healthcare Financing and Policy. We did host weekly office hours. There were meetings that were just open to anyone. They were posted on our website and were invited to anyone who had signed up on our public option listserv, as well as our Medicaid listserv, which is a very broad listserv. And we invited people to come and ask questions. You didn't have to be a health plan or a provider. It could be anyone from the public who wanted to attend and ask questions about the waiver analysis that we have presented, the early findings, as well as the process. And we do have a list. I would just have to go back to my folks and get them to give that to you. But we did post online all of the questions and answers from those sessions.
Great, thank you. I'd love to see that list. And so at this point in time, I'm just, you feel we do have the actual numbers for the actuaries? Because I certainly have not seen them. So when will we be able to actually review that? And the next question for that is, are you feeling confident that we will receive the waiver?
Chair, committee member Stacy Weeks, Deputy Administrator for DHCFP. When it comes to, I'm trying to remember the first question, it had to do with when you will see the numbers. We do have a preliminary analysis that has the main key numbers that we can share with committee members after the hearing if you would like. But the actual full report, which describes all the various assumptions and has a lot of tables behind some of those numbers that I think a lot of folks are interested in, will be available in the next week or two. That is the goal at this time. Also we have to follow a variety of remediation activities for the Americans with Disabilities Act, which also takes us time so we can get things up. I'm doing my best to get things up sooner so everyone has access. We will also send that out on our public listserv, and we can also share with the committee members if they would like. And then the last question, sorry, could you repeat your last question? I'm sorry.
Right. I'm quite concerned about whether or not we'll be granted the waiver or not, and how assured you are about that, because I feel that this money perhaps could be used for other Medicaid programs that are in dire needs, and worry that this money is being allocated without really having all the information we need to do so.
Chair, committee member Stacy Weeks, Deputy Administrator for the Division of Healthcare Finance and Policy. It's hard for me to say. I cannot speak for the federal government, but Colorado's public option, which had a similar waiver and a similar process for seeking federal pass-through funds, which we do expect to be close to $300 to $400 million in the first 5 years for the state of Nevada. Theirs was approved, and we expect a similar process with the federal government. I haven't seen any red flags from the conversations we've been having, but we're very early in that process. So I don't want to speak to what they would approve and not approve, but I am not concerned that it will not be approved, if that's helpful.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the questions.
Thank you very much. Any additional questions from the committee? Oh, okay. Speaker Yeager.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have a question, but seeing no additional ones, I'd be happy to make a motion to approve H53.
Thank you very much. Second?
A second.
Second from Senator Spearman. Any discussion?
Madam Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I will have to be a no on this. I think it is very premature that we are addressing this today. We do not have by the Commission's own admission that we do not have, number one, guarantee that we have a waiver. Number two, we have not been able to review the actuaries and the final report on that. So at best, I think it's premature today to do this. I think it's something that we should hold until we can see all the numbers before we can make these decisions. So I will be a no on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, all of those in favor, say aye, please. All of those opposed?
Nay.
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 We will need to,
So let's go back.
okay, we'll go by room. We'll start with Las Vegas. If you're an aye,
No, just a no.
just the nays. Sorry. If you're a nay, please raise your hand. Oh. Carson City? Could you please say your names if you're a no so that we can see who you are? I'm sorry.
Senator Titus, no.
Senator Goicoechea, no.
Senator Hammond, no.
Senator Krasner, no.
Assemblywoman Dickman, no.
Thank you. And online? Seeing no nays? We'll have a 1-minute recess, please. Okay, thank you very much. This motion failed, and so we will move on to H 71.
Good morning, or good afternoon. Thank you, Chair Dondero Loop. For the record, I'm Kelly Cantrell, Deputy Administrator with the Division of Welfare and Supportive Services. And this work program, the division is requesting approximately $2 million of federal temporary assistance for needy families, or TANF, from the TANF block grant, to fund a new virtual pre-K early learning program for access for all eligible TANF children, including those in rural areas and those that don't have access to existing pre-K programs. We know that supporting the children of TANF families also allows us to connect with TANF families to access their needs and provide them with a wide array of TANF services to help fill existing gaps. During our research, we've discovered and we've known that attending preschool helps children develop foundational skills needed to enter kindergarten, and it encourages positive self-worth and self-esteem, and also results in a higher high school graduation rate. In Carson City, I have with me Tanya Stevens, the Chief of Eligibility and Payments, and we are here to take any questions you might have.
Thank you very much. And with that being said, I believe Assemblywoman Miller has a question.
Yes, thank you, Chair Dondero Loop. My question is, if it was to be approved today, when would the program be available to families? And if you could just briefly add the application process so that families would be aware of this program?
Thank you for the question, Kelly Cantrell, for the record. We are going to RFA for this work program, and traditionally that takes about 3 to 6 months. We've got that time frame. We're trying to get this done in time so that we don't miss the beginning of the coming school year, so that we can serve that need. And I'm sorry, will you repeat what the second part of your question was?
Yes, just how would it be? So many times we do offer fabulous programs to Nevadans, but yet they're not always aware that those programs are available. So just how would that be pushed out so that the public knows even about the application process?
Thank you, Assemblywoman Miller. I'm going to go ahead and punt this over to Tanya Stevens, our Chief of Eligibility and Payments, because she's done a lot of the work in that regard regarding our outreach plan.
Tanya Stevens, for the record. As far as the process, application, and notification to TANF families, for the application piece, we would work that out with the agency that was selected to find the best means for that. As far as reaching TANF families, we would intend to reach out to community partners, direct communication with our TANF families, and then also do notifications within like our lobbies and through those means, as well as listservs to the public and on our website.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. And do we have any other questions or concerns on that one? Senator Neal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I just have a question. So in Clark County, I think it's Accelero, or I don't know, I'm not saying it right. Are you going to be working with them because they have a lot of the low-income children on MLK by the Pearson Center?
Thank you for the question, Senator Neal. Kelly Cantrell, for the record. It is certainly something we could do in going through the RFA process. It will be open to anyone that provides services of this variety, but we can absolutely take that into account and reach out to them and see if there's any collaboration that we can do in that regard. Accelero Learning Center, I think, is okay. Yes. They actually are housed in one of our buildings.
Is that it, Senator Neal? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Any additional questions up north? Senator Spearman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm not sure if this is connected, but there's a program over at CSN that has, it's like a daycare, but there's also a special section, I think, we looked at that has pre-K. So is this connected at all to that? And I'm agreement. Sometimes we put information out, but then people don't know how to reach it. And so if there is some connectivity, how can we make sure that the parents who are already using the daycare know that this would be an expanded version of that?
Thank you for the question, Kelly Cantrell, for the record. This is not connected to any other program at this time. This is a new virtual pre-K to reach some of the children in rural areas that may not have access. So it is not in conjunction with any other. To address your second question, I believe you're asking how we'll get the word out. So we do have a lot of ways to reach our TANF population. We can send a text message to all of them with children from between the ages of 3 to 5 that would be in this age group to let them know. The Division of Welfare also has a very robust outreach group of people that are in the community, working in the community in all sorts of areas, some directly working with children, hospitals, court systems such as that, and we could certainly utilize them to help get the word out as well.
Thank you very much. Additional questions or concerns? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much. I'll call for a motion. Thank you, Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno. And a second?
Second.
Second from Senator Spearman. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you very much for your time today. And we'll go to H73. Okay, thank you. While we work through a few mechanics here. Thank you very much. Please go ahead.
Again, Kelly Cantrell, for the record, Deputy Administrator with the Division of Welfare and Supportive Services. This program is requesting approximately $3.9 million of federal ARPA Low-Income Energy Assistance Program funds to provide financial assistance to Nevadans to pay for water and wastewater bills. I have with me in Carson City, Maria Wortman-Meshberger, who is the Chief of Employment and Support Services, and she will be available to take any questions that you have today.
Thank you very much. And Assemblyman Watts, did you have a question on this one?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me just bring it up here. So, my question on this is, thank you. So, oh yeah. Can you just talk a little bit more about the staffing for this program? I know that, there's been a struggle to get it operating as quickly as we'd like it to, and staffing has been a big challenge in that. So can you just give us an update on where things are at with the staffing for this program, and do you think that we're going to be on track with staffing to be able to move this out and keep it moving on the timeline we'd like to see?
Maria Wortman-Meshberger for the record. What part of the delay was our programming staff. We did have some unexpected reduction in that staff, a decrease in the staff, but it is now fully coded and in production, so I do not foresee any issues with that piece of it. And currently our energy assistance staff is determining eligibility for those applications.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. And Senator Neal, did you have a question?
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. How does the agency plan to accelerate low-income housing water assistance programs payments to utility providers on behalf of low-income households for water and wastewater bills?
So we are accepting applications. It is a combined application with our energy assistance program. So individuals can apply for the program, and then we determine the eligibility, and benefits are issued to their water and or sewer provider that is a partner with us.
So that leads me to my next question about outreach. And I want to say this because, I ended up doing that aging and assistance event in my district. And there were actually individuals that didn't know about the low energy assistance program. So you're going to tie this, right? And so you're going to have to put some marketing dollars, like for real ones, towards outreach. So how will the outreach be conducted to alert the households that are not currently enrolled in other welfare or supportive services or other assistance programs?
So currently, we did add the program to our DWSS website. It is on 211 as well. And we have provided flyers to all of our partnered energy vendors so that they can also get out the information. We are looking at doing social media through our DHHS social media sites as well. And that is what we have right now, but we are looking at ways to expand the outreach.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is there any way you can partner with the legislators and give us a JPEG, right? So we can put it on our Facebook pages and help share that information. We are your partners, right? We want our people who fall into these categories to be able to apply or at least be able to assist them in the process.
Maria Wortman-Meshberger for the record. Yes, we can definitely provide you that information. And we would love to have that.
Me too. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Senator Neal. Any additional questions regarding this particular item? Okay, with that being said, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Thank you very much, Assemblywoman Hadagi. A second?
Second.
Second from Senator Spearman. Thank you very much. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you very much. Motion passes. Thank you very much. All right, next item, H74.
Good afternoon. Melanie Young, Deputy Administrator for the Division of Child and Family Services. This request before you today essentially does two things. First, it provides a temporary room and board rate increase of $20 a day for our specialized foster care providers, effective January 1 through June 30 of 2023, for the rural areas only. Currently, the division is in the process of negotiating with our foster care providers for this specialized foster care group. Those foster care provider agreements will expire January 1 of 2023. Unfortunately, many of our providers are not willing to negotiate agreements with us any longer without a rate increase. This rate was developed back in July of 2007. And the rate has not been increased since then. The specialized foster care rate was implemented and piloted in I believe it's either the 2013 or 2015 session. And so with that, the rate was developed based on the prior foster care rate that was implemented in 2007. So currently our providers, we have 2 of them that have signed agreements. 2 of them have agreed to agreements but are no longer taking our youth. And 2 have refused to sign. So with that, we're bringing forward this request to increase the foster care rate on a temporary basis by $20 a day. The current rate is $115 and will go up to $135. Additionally, this request will cover a projected shortfall in budget authority in the category to make our advanced foster care and specialized foster care payments. That concludes my remarks, and we're open for questions.
Thank you very much. And Senator Spearman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, just real quickly, what is the programmatic and the fiscal impact of not having experienced specialized foster care providers, especially in the rural communities of our state?
Thank you, Melanie Young, Deputy Administrator. Could you please clarify the question? I'm not sure I'm following.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah. So you're saying that you're bringing this forth because the rate has not been adjusted? Yes? And you've had two already have said that they cannot contract with you again? Yes? Okay, so
Melanie
if this
Young,
doesn't
yes.
go, yeah, okay, so if this doesn't go through, what is the programmatic impact? What won't you be able to do? What will you be able to do, but not at the level of expertise or excellence that you're doing it now? And so talk to us about that. And Senator Titus has said a couple of times about the impact on rural communities. So that's my question. What impact would a no vote have on specialized foster care in rural communities?
Thank you for the question, Melanie Young, Deputy Administrator. For the record, the youth would not have appropriate placement. So the specialized foster care group has a specialized group. So these youth either have to have certain scores or are SED eligible. So they would not be receiving these services without the proper placement. And so they would either be placed likely in a higher level of care, which is inappropriate, or lower levels of care where they're not receiving services.
So the people who would suffer would be the persons who need it the most?
Melanie Young, for the record, that's correct.
Thank you.
Additional questions?
Madam Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Would you tell me the number of youth that this is impacting in rural Nevada?
Melanie Young, for the record, currently we have 2 youth in this placement that are utilizing this in the rurals. However, there could likely be others that are not in an appropriate placement that we would need to put there. I would like to additionally add that this is a statewide issue. Washoe and Clark County are also impacted, which they have a larger number of youth. And I can provide the data of the youth that there are placed in those locations if you're interested.
That would be, I'm sure everybody on the committee would like to see that. And if I might, with a follow-up question, according to our documentation, one of the folks or agencies that are using a specialized foster care is something called Rite of Passage. Rite of Passage is located in my district. According to the documentation that we've received, it's listed that Rite of Passage is in Minden and Garnerville, when in fact I know that there's still a Rite of Passage location in Mason Valley or just out or within the borders of the local tribal land, I think, in Mason Valley. And I'm wondering, did you mean Garnerville and Minden, and not the Mason Valley location, or is that just an error in documentation?
Melanie Young, Deputy Administrator, for the record, that could be an error in the documentation that they're providing. That's where maybe the headquarters is for Rite of Passage. I believe right now we have 4 youth placed at Rite of Passage, and that is a specialized contract, and the contracted rate for those youth are $340 a day.
Okay, so the one in Mason Valley is all women, girls. After they tried to burn it down with the young men a number of years ago, the state had to intervene with that. So I wanted to just make sure that it's for perhaps all the Rite of Passage locations and not just the ones in Douglas County.
Melanie Young, Deputy Administrator, that request is specific to these 4 youth in their placement, and I just got confirmation that that is in Minden.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair. That's all I had.
Thank you very much. Assemblywoman Brown May.
Thank you. Madam Chair, for the opportunity to ask the question. I'm just trying to get an understanding relative to the specialized foster care placements. Do you know if the organizations are for-profit entities that are functioning as group homes, or is this individualized family support that is specialized in training and care?
Melanie Young, Deputy Administrator. For the record, it could be both. Some of them are organized for-profit providers, and some of them are smaller family homes that are licensed to accept the specialized foster youth.
Thank you. Just one follow-up. Do you know if there's a waiting list for this service currently, both in rural and then in urban?
Good afternoon. For the record, Cindy Pitlock, Administrator, Division of Child and Family Services. Statewide, we really struggle for enough placements for youth with such critical need. I'm sure you've heard the stories about Kids Cottage up in Reno, Child Haven in Las Vegas, and the desperate need that we have to place youth in an appropriate family-like setting wrapped with appropriate resources versus a congregate care type setting, or worst case scenario, them having being placed in a higher level of care that is an inappropriate placement setting, or perhaps even being sent out of state. I hope that answers your question, and thank you for it.
It does, thank you. And just one last question, if you don't mind, Madam Chair. Have we been able to minimize the out-of-state placements as a result of some of the focused efforts we've had here in state?
For the record, Cindy Pitlock, Administrator, Division of Child and Family Services. You know, I really think in order to gain momentum on reducing the number of out-of-state placements, which currently there are 75, and that information is available on our behavioral health chart pack, that we can make that link available to you. We have not really, that number stays pretty consistent, a few in, a few out, stays generally around 73 to 78 over time. I really think it's going to be important to build out that community-based services array that we were so blessed with receiving the ARPA funding for. That is going to be very pivotal in keeping youth from higher levels of care and being sent out of state to receive services if we're able to build out that community service array in state. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you very much. Senator Spearman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I want to ask a question about rites of passage. To what extent does the agency intend to utilize rites of passage, rite of passage, for the high acuity specialized foster care youth placement over the 23-25 biennium? Can you speak to that, please?
Thank you, Melanie Young, Deputy Administrator. For the record, our plan is to utilize that placement for these 4 youth to provide continuity of care. And until those youth need a different level of placement, they will be at that location.
May I add to that, Chair? This is Cindy Pitlock again. Through you, Chair, to Senator Spearman. We're also exploring other areas that I really think rite of passage may be able to step up in that space. As you know, the CSEC, commercially sexually exploited children space, is really on our radar right now as far as building out caseloads for those youth and treating those youth through the child welfare system versus the juvenile justice or corrections detention system. And there's certainly a lot of room for partnership there, along with other entities statewide, such as St. Jude, that are interested in participating in services to those high-risk youth.
Follow up, Madam Chair?
Please.
I'm thinking now in terms of accountability. If there are issues, if there are some discrepancies in terms of how the program is operating or not, how do you plan on making sure that that particular part of the program becomes more robust, the accountability portion?
May I ask a clarifying question, ma'am? Are you referring to the accountability portion of rite of passage and the services that they are providing and that our youth are receiving high-quality services?
Yes, yes.
Thank you for that clarification, Cindy Pitlock. So that entity is licensed by HCQC, and certainly they maintain the oversight of that facility. Relative to our youth being placed, that our youth in our custody being placed in that facility, we continue to monitor those youth through our child welfare system and make sure that they're getting a robust service array.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. I have a quick question. I'd like to know how the division is making sure that rite of passage is following all the regulations and the things that they need to do.
Cindy Pitlock for the record. So I'm not aware of any reason to believe that rite of passage isn't following a robust service array, and they are directly overseen by HCQC. I certainly could get more information and bring that information back to the committee if so desired.
Yes, I would appreciate that. I had just had some information that all that wasn't being done properly, so I was asking that question. All right, any additional questions or concerns from the committee? Senator Spearman, please.
Yeah, and thank you for clarifying my clarification. So I guess what I'd like to say is just stress the fact that the youth that are involved in these programs, we cannot fail them. We cannot fail them. We cannot afford to fail them. Trauma that is not transformed is transferred. And so if there is any glitch in a program or any shortcut or anything that you should be going from 1, 2, 3, 4, and they jump from 1 to 7, then not only are we paying for the lack of excellence now, but we will certainly pay for the overlooking that in the future. So a report, something letting us know that this program, Rite of Passage, is doing the right thing all the time.
For the record, Cindy Pitlock, yes, ma'am, I will absolutely work on that and get back to you on that issue.
Thank you very much. Any additional questions or concerns on this? All right, with that being said, seeing none, I will take a motion. Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno.
So moved.
Thank you very much. A second?
Second.
Second from Senator Spearman. Any discussion on the motion? Thank you very much. And with that, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Okay, if you'll hang tight, we're going to take a 1-minute recess before we go into H92. Thank you very much. Okay, Speaker Yeager.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At this time, I would make a motion to rescind this committee's prior action on agenda item H53.
Second?
It's a reconsider.
A question, Madam Chair. I thought that only the winning side could make such a motion.
I don't know if they're being loose with the language.
I would ask that Mr. Fernley, I believe, is online to clarify that.
Yes, thank you. In this case, because this is a committee, the Interim Finance Committee, it's not a Senate committee or an Assembly committee. So we are under the Mason's rules, and Mason's section 464 provides that where there is no special rule on the subject, a motion to reconsider may be made by any member precisely like any other motion and subject to no other rules. So any member of the IFC can make a motion to reconsider an action, a vote.
Thank you. Speaker Yeager.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I got the terminology wrong there, so if I could restate the motion, I would make a motion to reconsider the action previously taken by this committee under agenda item H53.
Second.
Thank you very much.
Second.
Second from Senator Spearman. Any discussion?
Madam Chair, I think this
Yes,
issue.
ma'am.
Thank you. I think this issue was well debated, and I think the vote was held, and I think that this is not appropriate to be reconsidering, so I will be a no on the reconsideration.
Thank you very much. Any other discussion? Okay, with that being said, I don't see any. If I've missed you, please holler out. Otherwise, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
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 Okay, would the nays please say your name so that we have it clear?
Assemblywoman Dickman? Nay. Senator Krasner?
What? Nay.
No.
Senator Titus, no.
Senator Goicoechea, nay.
Senator Hammond, no.
Assemblyman Hafen, nay.
Motion passes. And Speaker Yeager.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. At this time, I would make a motion for approval of agenda item H53.
Thank you very much. Second?
Second.
Second from Senator Spearman. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay.
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 Would you please say your names? Thank you up in Carson City for the nays.
Senator Titus, nay.
Senator Goicoechea, nay.
Senator Hammond, nay.
Senator Krasner, nay.
Assemblyman Hafen, nay.
Remote people? Any nays? Okay. Thank you. Okay, motion passes. Thank you very much for the reconsideration. And we will move on to H92.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members. For the record, my name is Kristen Defer. I'm the Administrative Services Officer for the Nevada Highway Patrol. We appreciate the opportunity to discuss this work program with the committee, and this requests the addition of federal grant funds to build one e-screening van for mobile roadside commercial inspections. This is a pilot program and will be utilized to determine how the van may improve current commercial vehicle inspection operations, to include increased statewide mobile inspections and the utilization of computer software and hardware for the purpose of enhancing enforcement activities. We have Lieutenant Clay Madsen of the MIXAP Division and Captain James Simpson of the Nevada Highway Patrol available to discuss further details of the program and answer any operational questions you may have. And I am available to answer any fiscal inquiries you may have as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think possibly Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno might have a question. Am I correct?
Thank you.
Thank
yes,
you.
I have a few, if that's okay.
Please.
Okay. Could you tell us what are the factors that your agency will consider when to measure the success of this pilot program? And then I have another question.
Lieutenant Madsen, are you on to answer that?
Yes, ma'am. For the record, Lieutenant James Clay Madsen, Nevada Highway Patrol Mix-Up Office. So what our intention is to do is we're going to, upon approval of being able to purchase the van and outfit it while it's being prepped, we're going to run test areas in certain locations to get a baseline for the activity that we see without the tools. And then when we do get the van, we're going to do another one, same time frame, basically, to see what the difference is. The intention of this van is to go after the unsafe commercial vehicles that are causing the crashes in the state of Nevada. The vehicle will be equipped with certain equipment that allows us to see the safety ratings of those vehicles to target on those unsafe carriers.
And then what will the process be when you find a vehicle that's not in compliance, that's in violation? Will that vehicle be immediately removed, or will the driver just be ticketed and or cited and receive a fine? Or have you made that decision yet?
Thank you for the question again, Lieutenant Madsen, Nevada Highway Patrol. So depending on the severity of the violations we find, once the van flags it as a high-risk carrier, we'll have other enforcement personnel in the area to make a traffic stop on it and conduct an inspection based on what we see upon that initial approach. It could be one of three different inspections, either a driver only or a complete vehicle and driver inspection. And then depending on those violations, they could either be cited and let go, cited and placed out of service, or in some rare instances, even arrested in the instance of like a DUI or drug involvement.
Thank you for those answers. Thank you, Madam Chair. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the committee?
Madam Chair?
Any up north? Yes, Senator Titus.
Thank you. So thank you for the information. I think this is critical to you functioning in your department. Can you clarify for me that enforcement isn't an enforcement of the federal regulations critical to getting your highway funds?
Thank you, ma'am. Lieutenant Madsen, James Madsen, Nevada Highway Patrol. Yes, per the commercial vehicle safety program, the grants that we are given, we have to do a certain number of inspections each grant cycle. I think with the most recent grant, it's upwards of 29,000 inspections across the entire state of Nevada.
Thank you. And with your current vacancy rate, can you tell me what the current vacancy rate is with our Highway Patrol Department, AKA State Police?
Thank you, ma'am. Lieutenant Madsen with the Highway Patrol. I cannot speak to the entire Highway Patrol, but I can let you know about the commercial enforcement. Currently, statewide, we have 23 just troopers, and if we include our lieutenants and sergeants and our civilian personnel, 42. And we are currently planned to staff a total of 62. So we're down, depending, either 20 to 30 people.
Great, thank you. It's always important to make sure everybody's staying safe and certainly support this this project. So thank you.
Captain James Simpson for the record. Currently statewide, we're allotted 490 positions. Our vacancy rate right now is at 136, which puts us at 27.7% vacancy rate for the statewide numbers for the Highway Patrol.
Thank you very much. Additional questions on this issue, on this topic? Okay, with that being said, I would take a motion on this particular item.
I move to approve.
Thank you very much, Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno.
Second.
Second from Senator Spearman. And is there any discussion? Thank you very much. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Thank you very much. Motion passes, and we'll move on to H74. I'm sorry, 94.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Andrea Allen, for the record, and I serve as the Administrative Services Officer for the Division of Parole and Probation. I'm joined today with Major Aaron Evans, and we're here to speak regarding this work program that requests a transfer of funds from our Personnel Services category to the Otis Modernization category to continue the funding for an off-the-shelf software product, annual licensing fees, and contract staffing costs for a database administrator related to the offender tracking information system that was previously approved by Assembly Bill 494, Section 48 of the 2021 legislative session, the funds that were reverted in error during the fiscal year closing. We are happy to address any questions.
Thank you very much. And with that, Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno, did you have a question?
I do, Madam Chair.
Thank
seems
you.
Like everything with this agenda item started long before many of us ever got elected to the legislature, going back to 2013. That being said, lots of time, lots of money have been spent on this. Could you just discuss what additional measures, if any, your agency is taking to ensure that the offender tracking information system, this modernization project, will be successfully completed on time by this new vendor?
Thank you for the question. My name is Aaron Evans. I'm the major for the Department of Parole and Probation. I joined the Otis replacement project in May or June of 21 when we were with the prior vendor, and it was kind of clear early on that there was some problems with the project. There was some turmoil. There were some project management issues, I think, on the vendor side. And over the next few months with former Chief Tom Lawson, we identified that project was not going to be successful. And there was reasons for it that when we partnered with the new vendor, we made sure that the contract and the process of proving the milestones in that contract were a lot more robust, and that there would be stopping points if through one of the steps we didn't feel that the vendor was fulfilling their end of the bargain, that we would just stop after that, what they call sprint, and not continue down the road. Because that's kind of what happened with the prior vendor is stuff wasn't going well, but it got kind of set on the back burner and tabled, and we moved on to the next thing, and that didn't really go that well, so we just kind of set it aside and moved on to the next thing. That was part of what led to the downfall of the prior project. So with this one, if you reference the contract that was approved at BOE earlier this year, there's there was an initial initiation and then all these sprints. And in these sprints, it's like the process for eating an elephant, right? One bite at a time. And so all these sprints chop up our business into as small and manageable pieces at one time so we can analyze the requirements with the vendors, make sure they have a full understanding of what we need. They demo what they think we need. We give them feedback on that demo, and they continue to configure and go on. And so if in sprint one, whichever group we happen to be working with, if they haven't met our expectations, we're not moving on to sprint two. And you can see in the amount, in the billable amounts, we're not paying any of the invoices if we're not signing off on, whatever was provided in that sprint. Secondarily, our project team is going to remain the same throughout the entirety of this project. Like I said, I promoted into a position to be involved last calendar year. I've promoted again since there, but I'm not going anywhere. When our former chief asked, well, what are we going to do about the Otis project, because I had promoted, I'm like, I'm not giving it up. I've already spent 1.5 years in this, and this is too important to try to pass off to somebody else to get caught up to speed, because I remember having to do that myself, and it took a couple months to, to feel even comfortable where we stood. So on top of having that more robust agreement, and I think having the project sponsor, our project manager is fantastic. And we have these documents that have to be signed off by our project manager and their project manager to make sure all the elements of everything is being met. I think we took the feedback that we got 1 year ago at this committee meeting of needing these kind of safeguards to make sure that we weren't just kind of going with the flow and going down the stream, and we've gotten too far and didn't realize that we were not in a salvageable position.
I'm encouraged to hear that you will be staying on because this has been a long process. And if we're lucky and knocking on wood, we'll have this completed by this time next year. But if you find, as we finish each sprint, that this current vendor is not working out, do you already have a backup plan in mind that we can put into place in a very timely manner that could help keep us on track of the timeline that you've given us? Or do you feel that's even necessary to have?
Thank you for the question, Aaron Evans from Parole and Probation. I have no sense that we're in any trouble with the current vendor. I think things are going very well. We have multiple meetings a week. We have risk and issue meetings that we look to identify as we're going on if there's something down the road. So currently I have no concerns. As far as like a backup plan, we don't have a backup plan. We have an existing system that we track all of our supervised individuals in and all of our work, but that system went into place in 1999, 2000. So, it works to a degree, but we're limited in the data we can collect. We're limited into our ability to comply with some of the stuff in AB 236 of, collecting certain demographic information on people we supervise, because when the system was built, it didn't anticipate us needing to know gender identity or sexual orientation, things like that. So to say a backup plan, no. We've continued with Otis, the offender tracking information system, for many years when it's been past its life, and we could continue if we had to. So it's not like anybody's going to not be supervised or we're going to lose all this information or anything like that. This is just to modernize our records management system so that we can collect the data we need to collect, report it, and just kind of manage our caseloads much better.
Thank you for that. And I will be keeping my fingers crossed along with you that we have this completed by December of 2023. Madam Chair, that's the only questions that I have.
Thank you very much, Assemblywoman. I appreciate those questions. Additional questions on this particular item? Any more discussion? Up north? Thank you very much. All right, with that, I will take a motion. Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to approve.
Thank you very much. Second?
Madam Chair, a second.
From Senator Spearman. Thank you very much. Any discussion on the motion? Thank you very much. We'll go to all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. And we're going to go slightly out of order. We're going to go to J1.
Madam Chair, could you give me just 1 minute?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that indulgence, Madam Chair and committee. I know it's been a long day. Jessica Adair-Brennick for the record. I want to first off thank you for hearing this work program and just give you a very, very brief background. This settlement agreement is as a result of a class action lawsuit that was initially filed in early May of 2014. It was filed by NDOC corrections officers alleging unpaid wages in violation of the Federal Fair Labor Standards Act. The state has been in litigation for nearly 8 years in both federal and state courts. A settlement was preliminarily approved just earlier this month. This is the first portion of a payment for that settlement. If the state does not move forward with this payment, the settlement agreement will fall through and we will continue with extremely costly litigation. At this point, I am happy to take any of your questions.
Thank you very much. Senator Scheibel.
I'm not sure if we have representatives here from the governor's office of finance, or if you're able to answer, but I noticed that this would be the first installment of at least 2 installments to pay this settlement. Is there a plan in place to make the request for additional installments?
I'm not sure if GFO staff is available to answer that question, but I can at least walk through the structure of the settlement if that is helpful.
I think it will be. I just want to make sure that we're not putting ourselves in a position where we've agreed to expend the down payment, so to speak, and don't have a plan to pay the rest of it.
Jessica Adair-Brennick for the record. If GFO is unavailable to answer those questions, I can at least explain, Senator Scheibel, the first $15 million will be paid by our insurance company, AIG. There's additional $10 million from the statutory contingency account, with $5 million coming from the statutory contingency and $5 million coming from the IFC contingency, and that's what you're voting on today. It needs to be a second installment of $30 million, and that is contingent upon legislative approval during the legislative session. And that is something that we have discussed with opposing counsel as part of this tentative settlement. We've also discussed that with GFO as well. That is the plan that we have right now. And it is the best that we could to get that settlement agreement moving forward with the courts.
Question, Madam Chair.
Please, Senator Gokachia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So technically, what we're saying, if we make this vote, then we are in fact encumbering the next legislature or the next legislative session to make sure we come up with another 30 to settle it. I don't know if anyone has a number exactly what the original complaint or amount of wages or damages was, but I'm sure it's far less than the $55 million the attorneys are making on this. But clearly, as was pointed out by the Attorney General's office, the longer it goes, the more expensive it's going to get.
Thank you, Mr. Gokachia. I'm going to have Mr. Thorley give some background information on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Wayne Thorley for the record, LCB Fiscal. In conversations with LCB Legal on this item, they've indicated that if the IFC were to approve this request for a $5 million allocation from the IFC contingency account to the statutory contingency account, that's all the committee would be doing today. The committee would not be agreeing to future payments or agreeing to any portion of the settlement, since the committee, the IFC, was not a party to the settlement.
Senator, I believe you, Jessica Adair Brennick for the record, I think you alluded to the potential liability in this case being lower. The initial estimates for liability in this case was $165 million. The $55 million settlement agreement does pay for attorney's fees. It also pays for claimants specifically. We have estimated that the class is nearly 5,400 individuals. So this $55 million payment will include attorney's fees for opposing counsel, but it also includes additional costs in the settlement, as well as direct payments to the members of the class, so the corrections officers who were working at the time in question.
Yes. Thank you. I really appreciate that. But and even though this vote wouldn't in fact commit the next legislature, in reality, we have to be honest, it would. I mean, if we're going to spend 25 million of it, I would hope and as was pointed out, it's probably not a bad settlement. So thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Senator Scheibel.
And I just want to clarify the number that I'm looking at in my notes is that there'd be $36 and over $250,000 paid to the individual claimants, and then an additional $140,000 for a total of nearly $36,500,000 of the 55 going directly to the plaintiffs in the class, right?
Jessica Adair Brennick for the records. The documents that I have that we provided to GFO indicates $36,276,667 to individual claimants, roughly $18.5 million for attorneys' fees and costs, and an additional cost for the class representatives and the claims administrator.
Thank you very much. Okay, additional questions or concerns?
I think GFO is...
Ms. Stevenson, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could you, and I apologize, can you repeat the question?
Oh, I'm sorry. My last question was just to clarify that we're looking at a total of over $36 million paid to individual claimants out of the $55 million. So well over half of it is going to members of the class.
No, thank you for that. So the remaining 30 million for that settlement will be asked for, I believe, in the supplemental appropriation coming over during the session. Did that answer your question?
Yes, actually it did.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Additional questions or concerns from others on the committee? All right, seeing none, motion please, Assemblywoman.
Move to approve.
Thank you very much.
Second.
Thank you from Senator Spearman. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you very much. Motion passes. And we'll move on to J3. Thank you. Apologies, public safety. We're trying to consolidate. Thank you. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Curtis Palmer. I'm the ASO4 for the Department of Public Safety. And at one point we had our Chief of Capitol Police online, and hopefully he's joining us soon to answer any additional questions. But the item before you in J3 is a request for allocation of $132,721 to cover travel and operational costs associated with the providing dignitary protection for the governor and first family. We added 3 new positions, I believe it was back in April, and only received partial funding at that time, with the understanding that as we had a clearer understanding of what the funding is that we would need, that we would come back and ask for additional funds. And so this is kind of the second step of that, to provide additional funds for expenses through the fiscal year. And with that, we'll answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the committee? Up north? Seeing none, we'll take a motion.
Move to approve.
Thank you very much, Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno.
Second.
Thank you, Senator Spearman. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much, and thank you for being flexible today. Okay, we will do K1 and 2 together. Welcome. We're glad to see you.
Good afternoon. If you'd like me to kick off. My name is Elisa Caffaretta. I am the Director of the Department of Employment Training and Rehabilitation. Items K1 and 2 are a package. In brief, basically, at the last legislative session, as agreed, rather than put this amount of money in our budget, we agreed that our Vocational Rehabilitation Division would provide quarterly reports to you so we could get a better information, more in-depth reporting, so you could see the number of clients served, the cost per client, and we had a lot of discussion about the risk for going into order of selection. So that quarterly report was attached as item, one of the informational items, number P. But essentially, your Legislative Council Bureau reports, and we report that we have been able to see all the clients who have come to us for services, and we are at no risk for going into order of selection. So these requests represent the need to these are the additional funds that we'll need to close out our fiscal year and provide services to these clients. We are seeing an increase in folks coming in to see us. One of the other things we saw during the pandemic, which we consider very positive, is that clients stayed with us longer and got additional service. So maybe instead of one training, they might have gotten 2 or 3 trainings and credentials. So we think that that is very positive. These requests for these 2 budgets for vocational rehabilitation and the Bureau of Services to the Blind or Visually Impaired reflect our projections for our year-end needs, with always the caveat that we might see a large influx of clients and have to come back. But this is our current projection for what we'll need. I have the division staff online if you have any detailed questions, and I'd be happy to answer any as well.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the committee in Las Vegas? How about up in Carson City or online? Senator Neal.
Madam Chair, can I ask a slightly different question? I guess it's on services that Dieter is, I guess, how you're providing services. I have a question that's not related to this, but I think I probably will never see you to ask this question. But I wanted to ask about the overpayment situations that were going on, and there was activity to go and collect the overpayments that happened during the pandemic. But there was my understanding there's a federal document that allows the state to waive collecting overpayment, and why that federal language was not triggered to not go after the overpayments because it's more costly to try to sue individuals for overpayments.
Elisa Cafretta for the record. Thank you for the question. So a couple of responses to the question. We are very close to being caught up in processing unemployment claims. And as you know, there were several new programs that were created by Congress during the pandemic unemployment assistance being one. And so we are in the very tail end of wrapping up the pandemic programs specifically. And the way our old system works, and we're delighted that we got to sign the contract to modernize the system so that it's more responsive and better for Nevadans. The way the old system works, to finally close out a claim, if there is any question of overpayment, we need to issue the overpayment notice. So what some of your constituents are seeing are those final overpayment notices. And that's, there's a couple of reasons that people might get an overpayment. One is there was a fraudulent claim filed in their name, and that a few payments were made and then they were stopped. So we are hearing from constituents, if they never filed for unemployment and they get one of those notices, they should contact our fraud unit and let them know that that's a fraudulent claim so we can clean that out. In some cases, for pandemic unemployment assistance, the guidance in the beginning of the program was that that claimants could self-attest to the income that they're making as a self-employed person. The guidance later was updated to require those folks to document their income. We couldn't just take their word for it any longer. And so we sent notices to those claimants, at least 4 notices asking for the documentation. So what we're seeing is some folks didn't see that notice, didn't get it, or didn't respond to that notice. And so they are getting an overpayment because we don't have documentation that they should have gotten the benefits at the level that they received them. So they can do a couple of things. They can provide the documentation, and then we'll close out their file. If they don't have the documentation, they can appeal the decision and the overpayment, or they can request a waiver of the overpayment, and I'll provide you the phone number and the email for that for your constituents. So there are several options for people getting those notices, but it's to close out those programs. So about the waivers, the federal government never allows us to give blanket waivers to a claim, a notice of overpayment. In the case of the COVID program specifically, they gave very narrow guidance of very narrow circumstances in which we could provide a blanket waiver to people who got an overpayment notice instead of letting them respond individually. And Nevada applied for 2 blanket, but we couldn't just do them. We had to get approval from the Department of Labor to offer these blanket waivers. We applied for 2 blanket waivers. One was approved, one was not approved. So in the case where someone got paid because of the court order that was later overturned by the Supreme Court, we could waive those overpayments because truly that was no fault of the claimants, and we didn't have any choice. There is not any other circumstances that we can provide blanket waivers. So if you have a constituent who got an overpayment notice and it's against good conscience and equity, and it's a financial hardship for them, they will need to, under Department of Labor rules, apply for an individual waiver, and then it's considered by our staff. I know that was many-part explanation, but happy to answer additional questions if you have them.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, thank you. And thank you. That was good information. Thank you. Any additional questions? Assemblywoman Brown-May.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you so much for the presentation. It's great to see you here today. I just have a couple of questions relative to VR and the pre-employment transition supports. And so before I go there, I just want to clarify, I heard you say that we are not currently at risk for order of selection for your clientele. That's correct?
Elisa Cafferetta for the record. Yes, we are not at any risk of going into order of selection.
Thank you. As a follow-up, moving into pre-employment transition supports in the question, if VR in the state, so voc rehab, and I want to make sure I understand this correctly, DETR being employment and Department of Labor, voc rehab being employment training as a division in DETR, but then pre-employment transition supports and a lot of the voc rehab dollars really come out of Department of Education federally. Is that correct?
Elisa Cafferetta for the record. I see I can phone a friend. Razan Ellis, the administrator of vocational rehabilitation, is on the line, and I will let him give you the correct information so we don't have to go back and correct it.
Good afternoon, Assemblywoman Brown-May. This is Razan Ellis, administrator of the Rehabilitation Division. So the entire funding that Rehabilitation Division receives is from U.S. Department of Education. So the pre-employment transition services is part of that grant, and part of the grant that we receive is essentially set aside for the provision for delivering pre-employment transition services. But essentially, it's the same grant that the agency has been receiving for decades. With passage of VOA in 2014, a percentage of those funds, more specifically 15% of those funds, have been set aside for provision of these services.
Thank you. And then just to follow up, according to the data that you all have provided here that I'm looking at in the report, it shows that you currently serve pre-employment transition support students totaling 1,032 active clients. The data I received from the Department of Education suggests that we have 16,000 individualized education plan youth in the state of Nevada. And I'm just curious to know, how many of those would you anticipate would actually qualify for pre-employment transition supports? And then do we have a plan to support them?
This is Justin Ellis, Administrator of Rehab Division, for the record. Senator, that is correct. We have approximately 16,000 students with disabilities in Nevada, so all of them would be eligible for those services. The difference between pre-employment transition students or those individuals that will be receiving that service versus our kind of traditional clients is that those individuals do not have to be the clients of ER in order for us to provide them those services. So we do have plans to continue kind of increasing the delivery of services to essentially to all of the students across the state of Nevada. There's certain programs like Virtual Job Shadow, which we have partnered with the Department of Education, that essentially established this the type of a service where almost all where we purchased an access for each student to essentially be able to find out what types of jobs are out there. Also kind of receive some more specific training on what type of education they would need to kind of get into those jobs, and kind of what those jobs looks like. It would provide them with things like videos of what those jobs are, potential earnings potential as well. And then we also work with other vendors to provide in classroom training, and we've also provided supports like PACE labs, which are practical assessment examination labs in certain schools that would have resources and space for us to provide the services. But yes, we definitely are hoping to continue to increase number of students that are benefiting from these services as the time goes on, and our hope is that this year, at a minimum, we can double that number and kind of continue to increase that as time goes, as we are able to. Hopefully that answers the question.
Thank you for the detail. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Additional questions? Up north, any questions? Okay, not seeing any. What we're going to do is we're going to go through all of our informational pieces here, and then we're going to vote on all of them at the end. So you're welcome to stay, but if you don't need to, you're welcome to leave, since we know how hard you work. It's in the papers every day. All right, we'll go on to L. State Public Works Division. And when you're ready, please go ahead.
Hi. This is Kent Lefevre, and I serve as the administrator for State Public Works. Good afternoon, everybody. The request before you on item L is to receive increased authority to receive and expend $2.1 million in federal military construction funds for additional construction and design costs on the project. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the committee? Any questions up north? All right, seeing none, that was quick. Thank you very much for your time today. And like I said, we'll be hearing all these informational items, and then we'll double back on the vote. So thank you very much. And we will go to M.
We already did M.
Oh, sorry, we did M. N?
N was withdrawn. All we have left is H112 and H1.
Oh, H112 and
after that one.
okay, we will go on to H112.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. This is Casey, State Forester Fire Warden for the Nevada Division of Forestry. This work program is a request for $237,290 in FEMA funding through their hazard mitigation grant program through the Department of Emergency Management for the Lyon County Community Wildfire Protection Plan project. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Assemblywoman Brown May, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a question. In reviewing this item, the grant award was extended. And so have you received written notice of the extension from FEMA as of yet?
Thank you for the question. Again, for the record, Casey. No, we have not, but we did get a call again today from the Department of Emergency Management, who did talk to FEMA, who said it has been approved through January 17th of 2024, and they are hoping to get us a letter shortly.
Thank you. Just one follow-up. In federal language, what does shortly mean? Do you have any indication of that?
Thank you for the question. This is again for the record, Casey. I'm not sure because it so far has meant months. So I don't have an answer, but they have told us more than 3 times that this has been approved. And if we were to get the work program approved today, we would go forth as though we only had until this January 17th to spend until we were awarded, officially awarded that extension.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any additional questions from the committee? Anybody in Carson City with questions? Okay, thank you very much, and we will come back to this vote. Thank you very much. And with that, we'll go to H137.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, I am Dr. Antonina Capurro, Deputy Administrator within the Division of Healthcare Financing and Policy. And I'm joined this afternoon by Ms. Jeanette Gomez, the Nevada State Public Health Dental Hygienist. We are the Principal Investigator and Co-Principal Investigator, respectively, for the National Competitive Grant Award within this request. Agenda item H137 requests authorization for the use of Health Resources and Services Administration grant funds to develop and expand oral health service delivery infrastructure. Specifically, Nevada has been awarded a 4-year, $1.6 million Health Resources and Services Administration grant to support innovative strategies to enhance the oral health workforce and improve oral health service outcomes for vulnerable communities and populations, specifically within targeted dental health professional shortage areas. For some context, the state has worked for nearly a decade to secure this competitive federal grant opportunity. And through this grant award, Nevada will enhance oral health infrastructure, workforce development, and remote care delivery technologies. This includes a coordination with local educational agencies, continuing dental education, and providing a community-based dental facility within the town of Tonopah, Nevada, which will serve as a model for other rural and frontier communities. The management of this program will fall under the expansion of the Office of Oral Health Innovation, which will be housed within the Division of Healthcare Financing and Policy. And our DHCFP team is available for any questions.
Question from the committee, Senator Scheibel.
Thank you. I just wanted to confirm that if the grant funds are don't materialize, will the positions be eliminated?
Thank you for the question. This is Dr. Capurro for the record. The 4 positions which are outlined within the grant are tied to the grant deliverables. And just as with any other grant that's awarded to the state, if we do not deliver the outcomes that are outlined, then those positions would be eliminated and the funding would be rescinded.
Senator Neal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Dr. Capurro, can you talk about what stage are you guys in with the demonstration project, the dental waiver bill that I had a few years ago? I know we talked about it like 5 months ago, but are we any closer to trying to being in a cost-neutral space to start offering dental care to diabetic patients?
Thank you for the question. For the record, this is Dr. Capurro. Yes, so, which is a slightly separate item related to oral health, which is very exciting. We're trying to expand adult dental benefits to individuals with diabetes, which was approved through AB 223 in the 2019 legislative session. We have submitted our waiver. CMS provided released it for federal comment period. We received some questions back earlier this week and submitted those yesterday. So as soon as we get approval from CMS, then we'll be moving forward with our 90-day implementation phase, and then services will be set to begin. So we'll be sure to keep this committee and yourself up to date.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Additional questions on this particular item?
Madam Chair?
Please, Senator Titus.
Thank you. So I understand about the delay in getting permission, all of those things, but I'm concerned that we have 4 people that were 4 permanent positions we're putting in to oversee the awards of this grant, but where are the providers? So are these 4 folks going to even have anybody to oversee? I mean, we have an issue with providers out in the rural area. I understand dental health is lacking not only in the rural areas, but in urban areas also. And so I'm just wondering if we're going to have 4 state people, but do we actually have any additional dental providers?
Thank you for the question. This is Dr. Capurro for the record. And that is exactly what this grant is hoping to solve. So these 4 positions are administrative positions, biostatistician, management analyst positions that will serve for the 4-year grant period to help us reach our grant deliverables. To give you some detail about what we're hoping to accomplish. For instance, we have a workforce pipeline to train high school students in rural counties in dental assisting and offer them apprenticeships. We'll be creating a Nevada Dental Health Collaborative for dental therapists, hygienists, pre-dental students to foster an interest in dental public health so that they'll go out into those rural communities and those dental health professional shortage areas. We're launching a community-based dental clinic in Tonopah, working with the Northern Eye County Hospital District and the Nevada Dental Foundation that will serve as a apprenticeship site for dental students and dental hygiene students. We're also training school nurses to provide oral health assessments and preventative fluoride varnish to their students. So there's a number of different elements to this grant that are targeting workforce development and expanding service delivery to citizens across the state. If additional information is needed, I'd be happy to provide it.
Great, thank you for that. I'd definitely like to see like any outcome data here if we actually have improved, if this kind of grant actually helps gain some providers. I'd love to see those numbers and how you plan on solving that one. It all sounds great in theory, but I'd like to see the outcome. Thank you.
This is Dr. Capurro for the record. Senator Titus, I'd be happy to share with this committee our HRSA reports. We are required federally to report on those data, and I'd be happy to share that.
Madam Chair?
Thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question. I just wanted to try and understand. So for at least the first year of this grant, there would not be any actual treatment. This is all about administration, possibly training. So people in those communities would not probably actually receive any treatment?
Thank you for the question. This is Dr. Capurro for the record. This is a 4-year grant, and so there is in this year 1 period our startup of the grant. So we are doing things like hiring the staff and putting everything in place to begin the services, begin the educational components of this project. We are hoping that the Tonopah Dental Clinic will be opening in year one, towards the end of year one. But again, I'd be happy to provide any updates that the committee would like as we move forward.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you very much. Senator Spearman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I think this is probably just adjacent to the discussion here. We're talking about expanding providers. And in 2019, I believe it was, one of our colleagues had a bill to to introduce dental therapists. I believe that was the technical term. And so that bill didn't get through because there was some concern about whether or not there would be adequate care. And dental therapists are employed right now by the Department of Defense in all branches of the service. In 2013, we expanded the scope of practice for APRNs so that they could cover some of the areas in the rural, some of the services in the rural areas where the dentists were not. So here's my question. Have you considered within the scope of this grant what that would look like? Because according to the statistics that we looked at when the dental therapist bill was being heard, it would just about double the amount of providers, because you would have people that would be in the rural areas where you wouldn't have dentists to go. And so I'm trying to see if there is any wiggle room there, or has there been any discussion as to applying the intermediate step, if you will, of a dental therapist, like they've done throughout Department of Defense, that would, I think, address the questions that some of my colleagues in the North have asked about in terms of service providers. Is that clear, or clear as mud?
Thank you for the question. This is Dr. Kapoor for the record. Very important topic. In 2019, dental therapists were approved as a provider type within Nevada, and they are a licensee type within the Nevada State Board of Dental Examiners. We currently do not have any dental therapists in the state, but one of the areas of this grant is to create a collaborative that would support dental therapists as they indicate interest in coming into the state. We are looking at all provider types within this grant to expand our workforce.
And to that end, I would just encourage you to look. I know there are some times when there are military bases in some of the rural areas that there could be partnerships developed. And as I said before, dental therapists have been used, I think, for like the last 10 or so years in the military services. And that may be one of the things that you might be able to partner with, so that we can get this off and running. And it's not just something that's languishing because we talked about it and it sounded good.
This is Dr. Kapoor for the record. Thank you for that. We'll certainly take that advice.
Thank you so much. Any additional questions or concerns about this particular item? Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Kapoor, for joining us today on several of our issues, and we appreciate your work. Thank you. All right, we are now I'm going to ask for a motion for K1, K2, L, H112, and H137.
Madam Chair, this is Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno. I move for approval of K1, K2, L, H112, and H137.
Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, I second.
Second from Senator Spearman. Thank you very much. Any discussion on this motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you very much. Motion passes. And now we will move on to I, Mr. Thorley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be very brief. You can find the statement of contingency account balance in your meeting materials in volume 5, beginning on page 197. It's a little odd to be doing the statement after the contingency requests were already approved. Beginning on page 197, if you look at the line second from the bottom, this is a summary page. There were a total of $6.8 million in requests before the committee today for contingency account balance or contingency account allocations, both unrestricted general fund and restricted general fund. Those were all approved. So in total, there is $14.652 million remaining in the contingency IFC contingency account at this time. That is made up of 3.387 million in the unrestricted general fund, 1.6 million in the unrestricted highway fund, and then the bulk of it, 9.6 million, is in the restricted general fund and highway fund portion. I would be happy to answer any questions that any committee members have on the statement, if there are any.
Thank you very much. Any questions from anyone?
I want to mention that. No.
Okay, I appreciate that information. Nobody pulled anything from P, so we will move on to our second public comment. So with that being said, to call in to provide testimony, we'll start here in Las Vegas and then we'll go to Carson City. But to call in during public comment, dial 669-900-6833. When prompted to provide meeting ID, please enter 892-5578. 9050 and then press pound. When prompted for a participant ID, please press pound. The call-in information is also on the agenda, so I will call for public comment here in Las Vegas. I see none. Calling for public comment in Carson City. I don't see any. We'll go to the phones. BPS, when you're ready, please queue up the first caller.
Thank you, Chair. If you would like to participate in public comment, please press *9 now on your phone to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to participate in public comment, please press *9 now. Chair, your public line is open and working and you have no callers at this time.
Thank you very, very much. I appreciate BPS being with us today. I would like to thank all of you who have participated in the meeting today and all of you that are remote or that have given us information, all the members of the committee, and I hope everyone has a happy holiday and a fun and safe holiday. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
Happy holidays. Merry Christmas, everyone.